Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a quick look at, listening to, and installing the Corsa Extreme Catback exhaust with polished tips, available for all 2018 and newer GT fastbacks without active exhaust. Now, if your S550 did not come with the active exhaust off the factory line, you can still get an extremely loud track-like sound profile, specifically with the Corsa Extreme. Now, Corsa is known for making some of the highest quality materials in the category, and the extreme technology that they use in this particular catback is known to be some of the loudest in the category as well. Now, as you just heard from our sound clips, I'm going to give this guy 5 out of 5 on our loudness meter. The Extreme is absolutely no joke. Now, granted, you can keep it a little bit tamed at the lower end of the RPM band, just going from red light to red light, but it still is much louder than the next best guy in the category. Now, at cold start, it's going to absolutely scream. It is super, super loud. Your neighbors are 100% going to hate you, but it is something that is extremely aggressive. There really isn't anything like it. Now, like I said, red light to red light, you can keep it pretty tamed, but once you start hitting wide open throttle, it's going to start screaming again, something that's going to blow the ears out of the guys next to you. But the nice thing about this technology is it's the reflective sound cancellation technology patented by Corsa used in their Extreme mufflers. Now, the reflective sound cancellation technology is supposed to give you some of the loudest volume available without having any of the drone inside. Now, that's obviously something that a lot of guys don't want when they're especially driving on the highway with their daily commute, which a lot of guys use their S550 for. You want a lot of volume on the outside, but you don't want any drone on the inside. This is going to be a great way to go. You don't always get that with 5 out of 5 on the loudness meter. Aside from the sound though, the Corsa system has a lot to offer. It's got 304 stainless steel throughout the entire system, 3-inch mandrel bent tubing, which is going to reduce some of the airflow restrictions and the kinks you'd get from a factory exhaust. And coming out the rear here, you're going to get quad tips in the polished finish. Now, they're 4-inch slash-cut double-walled polished tips, and the polished tips are a lot brighter and they're a lot more attractive than your factory polished tips, which are pretty dull. So you get a lot more of a gloss finish out of these, and it's going to look really good pretty much on any paint color and any valence. But if you're looking for something that's more stealthy, they do have black options out there as well. The last thing I want to mention with this exhaust here, and we'll talk about it a little more in depth later on in the video, is the X-Pipe. The Corsa X-Pipe here is a double helix X-Pipe, which is going to not only increase airflow, but it's going to bump up power a little bit too. This is going to help you increase airflow about 48% over the factory exhaust, and Corsa lets us know you can pick up about 5 horsepower and 4 or 5 torque at the rear wheels as well. Doesn't sound like much, but just increasing the airflow like that can make a difference to the power you feel at the wheel. With all of that in mind, the Corsa system here is going to come in right around $1,700, making it again one of the more premium options in the non-active exhaust category. If you have an active exhaust in your S550, the Corsa Extreme is also available for the active guys. This is just going to be for the non-active S550s. Now, the install, I'm going to give 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. No cutting or drilling involved, but it is a little bit more involved than, say, a cold air intake. It'll take very simple hand tools. You can have it done in about 2 hours from start to finish. I'm going to show you every step of the process. What do you say we get started? Tools used in this install include an impact gun or a ratchet, an extension, 13 and 15 millimeter deep sockets, flathead screwdriver, and a mallet. All right, first step here, we're gonna loosen up the 2 clamps holding our factory resonator pipe, or really the entire exhaust, to our factory headers. Now, in order to do that, grab a 15 millimeter deep socket, and we're not gonna remove the nuts, just loosen them up a good amount so that they can move freely. All right, next step, we're moving toward the rear of the vehicle, looking at our rear subframe. There are 2 hangers holding the exhaust up to the subframe here. Now, instead of trying to pop these hangers out of the isolators, because doing that and then getting them back in is gonna be pretty tough, Instead of doing that, we're gonna remove these 2 bolts from the frame and then twist down the hangers off the frame. So grab an extension and a 13mm socket. I'm gonna go right over the rear sway bar and get these 2 bolts off. Once you have those off, lift up and unhook it and bring it down. There's a little locking tab here that hooks right into that. So you're just gonna lift up and rotate it off. Next up, I got my buddy Jared to help me out here. This is definitely a 2-person job. Have 1 person at the tips or the mufflers. I'm gonna be over here just tapping those clamps to the side, and we'll set it aside all in one piece. So we got our factory exhaust off of our 19 GT, the non-active exhaust system, and it's on the ground here next to our Corsa Extreme with our polished tips. Now I want to take you through some similarities and differences between the two here, and I gotta say, head to toe, it is almost completely different. Starting at the front of the vehicle here, we're going from the factory resonator mid-pipe to a double helix X-pipe. Now, when it comes to aftermarket exhaust, you typically have 2 options. You have an X-pipe and you have an H-pipe. Now, the H-pipe there is gonna give you a nice deep sound, but it's also just a little bit more restrictive than an X-pipe because of that crossover pipe. The double helix X-pipe from Corsa is their patented mid-pipe that's gonna use what looks like 2 X-pipes put together there. That's gonna increase or help increase the Mustang's airflow for the exhaust by 48%. Now that 48% is for the entire system there, but a lot of that's definitely due to the double helix X-pipe. X-pipe here is going to give you a nice rich, raspy, crisp tone as opposed to the deeper H-pipe tones. This is also going to bump up your horsepower and torque numbers by about 5 horsepower and 4 torque. Moving forward, we have an entire system here made from mandrel bent 304 stainless steel, higher quality materials than your factory option there, and it's a little bit larger in diameter at about 3 inches. Moving forward from there, you'll see that the mufflers are a big difference as well. Your factory mufflers there are going to diminish a lot of the sound that you want from your 5-liter. Now, I will admit the S550s, especially the newer 2018 and newer guys, they definitely sound pretty aggressive off the factory line, but if you're looking for all-out volume, they're just not going to cut it. The Corsa Extreme is known to be one of, if not the loudest option in the category, and that's thanks to not only the double helix X-pipe matched up to the Corsa Extreme mufflers, which have very little to no baffling on the inside, so they're going to produce that sound you heard from our sound clip earlier on. Finally, the tips make a huge difference as well. Your factory tips are extremely thin-walled, pretty sharp slash-cut tips. They're right around 3.5 inches there, and we're going to bump that up to a nice stainless steel, 304 stainless steel, polished quad tip. Now the polished quad tip there is not only going to be a lot shinier and glossier, but it's also going to hold up a lot better than your factory ones, and they're double walled, so they're a little bit thicker and more aggressive looking. Now if you're not looking for the traditional look that comes with the polished tips, Corsa also has the black tips and a couple of other different colors out there to match your personal preference. In my opinion, a nice polished tip here from Corsa keeps it traditional, but gives it a little bit more of an aggressive stance at the rear. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, and it's the first thing we'll do for the install, is talk about these adapter pipes. Now, the adapter pipes here bolt right up to the inlet there for the X-pipe. And the reason you're going to use these is so it adapts down to the size of your header pipes. Now, if you're using aftermarket 3-inch long tube headers instead of your factory headers, then you're not going to use this adapter pipe, and you're just going to go right into the 3-inch X-pipe there. It'll match up perfectly. But if you're using the factory headers, use this adapter. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to pop this guy onto the vehicle, attach it to our X-pipe, and move on from there. All right, first step here, I'm going to grab our factory clamps, the ones with the double bolt plate on it, and I'm going to insert that back over our factory cat pipe. Again, this is a little bit different if you're using aftermarket long tube headers, but since we're using the factory pipes, I'm going to slide those on and then follow it up with those adapter pipes I talked about. Once you have those seated all the way in, tighten them down. All right, next up is our X-pipe. You want to make sure that the Corsa plate is facing down. Put your clamps over the end, the 3-inch clamps, and then connect it to those adapters. All right, once you have that guy seated all the way in, rotate the clamps into position and tighten them down. All right, next up is our muffler pipe. I'm going to start this with the hanger near our tip. Slide that guy in, and then connect it to the X-pipe that we just extended toward our rear diff. All right, you wanna make sure you have a clamp in place there as well. Before we tighten that down, I need to put our hanger back onto the subframe. So I've got the hanger taken off the factory exhaust. What you're basically gonna do is make sure the tab is facing the subframe there. You're gonna slide that guy on. All right, once you have that hanger slid on, you're gonna rotate it upward and connect it to that subframe. All right, so now we can tighten down this clamp. I wanna get it nice and snug, but we still wanna leave room for adjustment so we can make sure our tips are lined up. All right, now we're doing the same thing to the other side. All right, then we can put our hanger back on. All right, next up is going to be the subframe bolts. So grab your 13mm factory bolts, line up those holes, put them through by hand first, just to make sure that they're lining up properly. All right, grab your extension and 13 socket and go over the sway bar and tighten them down. All right, the last step is gonna be the tips. Make sure you have a clamp on, slide that guy in place. Now keep in mind that the tips are meant to have the inner tip facing out a little bit more, so you wanna make sure that they are side specific. All right, tighten down your clamp. All right, same thing on the other side. All right, at this point, align the tips in the rear valance the way that you'd like them and tighten down all your clamps and you're good to go. That's gonna wrap up my review and install for the Corsa Extreme Catback Exhaust with polished tips, available for all 2018 and newer GT fastbacks without active exhaust. Pick yours up right here at AmericanMuscle.com.